Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Jean Grey, Rogue and Scarlet Witch? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. Later, Xavier's school for the gifted danger room. Cyclops and Nightcrawler was standing beside Evan in his X-Man uniform with his skate gear on looking down a long ramp. This is your 5th time, Spike. You want a breather? Cyclops asked Spike, who shook his head. No, I'm good. Wolverine smirked before raising his hand. Let the kid go. Spike rolled down, dodging balls thrown by Jean, kunai from Naruto, and fireballs from Phoenix. She's wearing a dark navy blue sleeveless bodysuit with a cowl and matching navy blue combat boots. She has gold platelets with the X logo on both of her shoulders, attached to a small gold breast platelets, 2 black gloves with gold armbands, and a gold utility belt bearing the X logo. Cyclops shot beams at Spike, hitting his skateboard and having him fall. You did good, kid. Wolverine said, picking Spike up. Hey Evan. Your coach called. You need to go down to the school, you have a game tonight. Shadowcat said from the control room as the others came down. There wasn't one scheduled tonight. Spike replied, making her shrugged. Principal Darkholm put it together last minute. You're playing against PS 104. Later, Bayville High. Naruto saw Evan talking to Petro before walking over. Everything going alright over here? He asked, making shake their head. I'm guessing this guy's the one who stole in your old school. He asked, making Pietro smirk. That's right. What are you going? He stopped as Naruto quickly punched him in the stomach. That. Naruto said before Pietro dashed off with Evan following. Need help? Naruto looked back to see Rachel behind him. Sure. They took off down the street after them, quickly changing into their costumes, and found destroyed cars in the street as they caught up to Spike. Phoenix. Lift him up. Phoenix lifted Quicksilver up and Naruto threw kunai, pinning him to a wall. Unknown location. The group of people in cloaks stood around a fire as a male stepped forward. She has resurfaced again. We need to find out where she is and catch her. I've sent our best agent to watch her for now. He finished as another one stepped forward. Why not simple get her now? The person asked in with a female's voice. We're not ready to do anything against her at the moment. We need time to prepare. He finished as the fire went out. Afternoon, Xavier's school for the gifted. Scott in his bathing suit walked to the door as someone knocked on it. Hello, he trailed off as a teen girl with long blonde hair, wearing a white sleeveless top, cape, gloves that go up to her elbow, pants, and knee-high boots. Hello. I'm Emma Frost. Is this Xavier's school for the gifted? She asked, making him nod. Yes. Professor X is right outside. She smiled as she walked in with several suitcases floating behind her. As they walked outside, she saw everyone in the pool with Rachel laying on her stomach sunbathing only in an orange bikini bottom. Professor X. This is Emma. She seems to be telepath. Scott said as Charles rolled over. Pleasure to meet you, Emma. He greeted, holding out his hand, and Emma took it. Now. Bayville High outside, noon. Naruto and the others ate their lunch, talking about going to a party Duncan's throwing. No. I don't think it's a good idea. Scott said as Evan drank his 5th carton of milk. You going to finish that? He asked before Jean gave him hers. Here, you can have mine. Grabbing it, he nodded. Thanks. Come on. It might be fun. Jean said with a smile. No. Besides, we're probably not welcome there. He only invited Rachel and Emma. Scott said, noticing Emma at a table with several other girls laughing before Duncan walked over. I think he has the hots for them. He finished before hearing a groan. Come on, Naruto. You have permission from Tsunade. He looked to see Rachel trying to pull Naruto in for a kiss. Even so, Rachel, we're in public. In a place where polygamy's frown on. Naruto said, making her huff. Oh, alright. Wait until we get home. Naruto sighed, remembering Rachel convincing Jean to accept his predicament. We need to get our claim before someone else from his home does. Naruto smiled as he remembered how Tsunade said they were close to finding a way to use the summons to have him come back home. Well, I don't think he's a jerk, I'd go. Naruto was pulled from his thoughts as Kitty spoke up. Sorry, no freshman. Scott apologized, making her huff. You're right. He is a jerk. She said, crossing her arms. Besides. What if someone got close to Kurt? That watch wouldn't keep anyone from feeling his fur. Scott said, pointing to Kurt, who's looking at Kitty. Hey. Chicks dig the furry dude, right? Kurt asked, leaning over to Kitty, who got up and left. I'll see you later. She said over her shoulder as Jean sighed. Oh yeah. She can't resist. Kurt said, running a hand through his hair. Or what if Duke or Maximoff tries anything? We're not the only mutants here. Scott finished, making Naruto sigh. I'll give you that one, they're the type that don't really care if they get discovered. he said as the two walked past them. Oh come on Scott. What's wrong with a little socializing? Jean asked leaning her head on her hand. I just don't think it's a good idea okay? He asked as Kurt snorted. Dude. It's just a party. He jumped up on the table and started dancing. Time to shake that tail. Woohoo. He yelled as his tail appeared making Scott grab it. Hey watch the tail. Scott pulled Kurt back down making him glare. See that's what I'm talking about. Scott said as Kurt narrowed his eyes. You pulled my tail man. He yelled as they continued to bicker. Guys. Naruto said as they ignored him. If you'd only listen. Scott said as Kurt got in his ace. No you listen there's a sound I want you to hear and it goes like. BAMF. Scott sighed as Kurt teleported away. Blew it didn't I? He asked as the others nodded. But Kurt, empty room underneath the school. Kurt landed on a bunch of boxes as his holo watch started sparking, making him return back to normal form. I need to work on my re-entries. He said before hearing Rogue's voice. Hello? He started looking around and saw a door with a sign that said stay out. On it. He teleported inside just as Rogue walked in from the other side. He looked to see old computer equipment before walking forward. He stepped past a laser near the floor and suddenly, a smiling teen boy came up on the screens. He's a Native American with short black hair, beaded necklace and a white-green striped shirt. January 27, 1978, hello. He greeted waving. If you're watching this you've got 10 seconds to leave before the lab explodes. Have a nice day. What's left of it? He finished as 10 appeared on the screen and started counting down. Crap. Kurt said before running up and tried to disarm the bomb. Boom. Kurt was sent flying outside past Rogue, who covered herself from the blast. She ran up to him and kneeled down. Hey you alright? What happened? She asked as she groaned. Lab. Bobby trapped. He replied as she got up. Lab. She walked in and coughed as the smoke dispersed. Looking around, she saw everything was destroyed except one device. For better picture, watch this episode or Google image the device for episode. She picked it up as Kurt stumbled in. What are you doing here? He asked making her look back. You're one to talk. At least I didn't blow the place up. She replied before Kurt notices she's holding a device. Hey let go of that. He said dashing over and grabbed it. As they struggled, the device turned on and shot Kurt trapping him in what looked like a bubble before disappearing with him in it. Bro gasped before tossing the device away and walked up to where Kurt vanished. He's gone. With Kurt. Kurt appeared in a hallway of the school before seeing it's distorted. Where am I? The Twilight Zone. He asked as tangible students appeared and disappeared in front of him. Scott needs to chill. He heard Evan's voice before seeing him and Kitty walked past him. Yeah, but Kurt does need to know when to quit. Kitty. Kurt yelled trying to grab her only to phase through her. What's happening to me? He asked looking around before teleporting away. With Rouge, holding the device with a broom walked to a dumpster before dropping it, only to miss. She gasped and covered her face as it dropped to the ground. What's this? She heard Todd's voice before dashing over and threw the device away. Don't touch that. She yelled as he looked confused. Why not? It's. Never you mind what. Just don't touch it. He raised an eyebrow at her. Did you get into trouble or something? He asked as her eyes narrowed. Let's just say there's one less X-Man around okay? She replied as his eyes widened. You mean you toasted one of those goody goods with it? Wicked. Just don't touch it swamp rat. She said before storming off. Geez. What's this, abuse the toad day? He asked before picking the device up. Inside the school, Jean, Rachel, Naruto and Scott walked down the hall. So. You think I should apologize to Kurt? Scott asked them making Naruto sigh. I think you both should. He does need to take the hiding our powers seriously. But really what's the harm in going to a party? Just have him wear a long sleeve shirt with gloves. I doubt anyone will touch his face. He finished before two boys ran out of the bathroom and screamed. Blue ghost. Scott sighed as he and Naruto walked inside. Kurt. They asked not seeing him inside. Walking out, Scott looked to the girls. Can you tell him to knock it off? Rachel and Jean concentrated before sighing. No. He's not in the school or at home. Jean said as Emma came around the corner. Looking for Kurt? She asked as they nodded. I thought I saw him in the hall earlier. Without his disguise. But it looked like I could see through him. She explained as Fred and Lance walked over. With Kurt. Kurt walked into the gym before hearing someone. He teleported above the door before hearing coughing, looked down and saw the teen from the video. Where did you come from? The teen asked before Kurt teleported down. The teen jumped back as Kurt lifted his hands. Whoa. It's alright. What are you man? He asked as Kurt walked over. Don't let my looks fool you. I'm a harmless fuzzball. Hey, you're the one I saw on the computer screen. Just before it blew. The teen chuckled before introducing himself. Yeah. I'm Forge. So you found my lab. What's with the Halloween getup? Forge asked as Kurt shrugged. It's no costume. I'm human. But I'm a mutant. I know I look strange but. He teleported beside Forge and smiled. There are some fringe benefits. Forge smiled before bringing up his right arm and transformed it into a gadget. For a better picture look at this episode. Trippy, I thought I was the only one. A while later, Forge was working on a device for Kurt to teleport back and tell the others how to free them as a birdbath fell beside them. Whoa. Someone's giving that gizmo of yours a workout. He said as Forge smirked. That gizmo is a transdimensional transporter. He explained as he was soldering a wire. My science fair project back in '78. He finished as Kurt's eyes widened. 78. But you still look. He trailed off as Forge smiled. I know. I can't explain it myself. He said as two girls walked past them into the locker room say. How far does this? Middleverse go? Kurt asked as Forge sighed. Stops short of the girls' locker room. Isn't that a burn? Now this will only work for a second. These batteries don't have much juice. Forge said holding AA batteries. Still you can tell someone to reset my device. Kurt sighed before grabbing his head. I hope they don't think I'm joking. He said as Forge raised an eyebrow. I have that reputation. Forge's lab. X-Men and Rouge. Rouge brought them inside after explaining she used the device on Kurt. It happened here. She said as Cyclops stood up. If you hurt him. He stopped as Naruto walked in between them. Easy Cyclops. She did tell us. And she's telling the truth, it was an accident. Hugh said before Shadowcat spoke up as she looked at the device. Hey, we've checked this out. She said before Spike continued after her. It uses CPM talk about Retro Man. Emma walked over and looked at it. Whoever built it. Must have been very ahead of their time. It did survive a blast. Kitty closed a panel before continuing. It's putting out a steady pulse wave that disappears and reappears. Okay, let's trash it. Cyclops said walking over and putting it on a table. Sure, that's wise. It could do more damage that way. Naruto said as Shadowcat walked over to him. Yeah. I could just phase through and short it out. Cyclops and Spike looked to her like she was nuts. Right. Forget it. Like what's up with boys and explosions? Don't know. Naruto said as the girls looked to him. Hey, I come from a place where we make explosions on a daily basis. In fact they bore me now. He said before Kurt came up and pointed at the device. Reset. Don't. He disappeared as the others looked at the spot he was at. You saw that right? Cyclops asked as the others nodded. What did he mean reset don't? Emma asked as Spike looked at Cyclops. He wants us to blow it up. Cyclops shook his head at that. Then why say reset? Don't instead of don't reset. I think he wants us to reset it. He looked at the buttons and pressed the reset button, having a bubble come up with Forge and Kurt inside. There they are. Turning around, they saw Toad, Fred in a vest and boots, and Lance now wearing a full navy blue bodysuit with maroon accents and a high collar. He's covering it with silver-colored body armor and shoulder plates. His boots have metal plates attached and he wears gauntlets over his arms. He wears a helmet of a clear material, which looks like glass. Rouge. Mystique sent us to find you. So are you with us or with them? Lance asked as Rouge looked down. Rouge. Naruto asked as Rogue walked out. This isn't my fight. Naruto sighed as he got ready for a fight with the others preparing as well. Emma, Phoenix, and I will take care of them. Just watch the device. You may need to hit reset again if Kurt doesn't come back. I got salad bowl. Rachel said as Emma's body took a diamond appearance. I got blob. Naruto shrugged before looking to Toad. I guess that leave you and me. He dashed over and punched him, only for Toad to jump up in the air and shot his tongue around Naruto's arm. Naruto grabbed it and smirked. What happens to a toad when it's hit by lightning? He asked as lightning covered his arm. Seka, telegram flash. Toad was sent flying back and groaned. Same thing that happens to everything else. He glanced to see Emma take a punch from Blob before punching him through the wall and jumped after him. Phoenix lifted Avalanche off the ground and yawned. Can't cause earthquakes if you can't think straight. She started spinning him around just as car came out of the portal and hits the wall. What are these thing? Forge asked, feeling his airbag. Cushy re-entry bags. Kurt replied as Naruto and Phoenix took the others outside. Later. Naruto sat on the hood of his car as Scott talked to Forge. You're welcome to crash with us, Forge. Xavier's cool, you like him. Forge shook his head before smiling. No thanks. I need to go home and see my parents. Scott shrugged before handing him a piece of paper. Okay. Give us call if you need anything. As Forge left, Scott looked to Kurt. I'm sorry. They both said at the same time as the others looked shocked at Scott. I should lighten up some. Scott said as Kurt sighed. And I could dial down the goofing also. Everyone but Emma got in Naruto's car, who went with Scott left laughing. Rouge. Mystique sent us to find you. So are you with us, or with them? Lance asked as Rouge looked down. Rouge? Naruto asked as Rogue walked out. This isn't my fight. Naruto sighed as he got ready for a fight with the others preparing as well. Emma, Phoenix, and I will take care of them. Just watch the device. You may need to hit reset again if Kurt doesn't come back. I got salad bowl. Rachel said as Emma's body took a diamond appearance. I got blob. Naruto shrugged before looking to Toad. I guess that leave you and me. He dashed over and punched him, only for Toad to jump up in the air and shot his tongue around Naruto's arm. Naruto grabbed it and smirked. What happens to a toad when it's hit by lightning? He asked as lightning covered his arm. Seka, telegram flash. Toad was sent flying back and groaned. Same thing that happens to everything else. He glanced to see Emma take a punch from Blob before punching him through the wall and jumped after him. Phoenix lifted Avalanche off the ground and yawned. Can't cause earthquakes if you can't think straight. She started spinning him around just as a car came out of the portal and hits the wall. What are these thing? Forge asked feeling his airbag. Kushi re-entry bags. Kurt replied as Naruto and Phoenix took the others outside. Later. Naruto sat on the hood of his car as Scott talked to Forge. You're welcome to crash with us, Forge. Xavier's cool, you like him. Forge shook his head before smiling. No thanks. I need to go home and see my parents. Scott shrugged before handing him a piece of paper. Okay. Give us call if you need anything. As Forge left, Scott looked to Kurt. I'm sorry. They both said at the same time as the others looked shocked at Scott. I should lighten up some. Scott said as Kurt sighed. And I could dial down the goofing also. Everyone but Emma got in Naruto's car, who went with Scott left laughing. Now. Xavier's school for the gifted, early morning. The shirtless Naruto walked out of his room and bumped into Kitty. Morning, Kitty. He greeted as she blushed seeing his chest. Oh sorry. Naruto said pulling on a dark blue shirt. So what's got you in your uniform? He asked noticing she's in her X-Men uniform. Professor X called for training to test Emma and Rachel. Oh, okay, I'll get ready. He stopped when she raised her hand. He doesn't want you. Something about a big bill from the last time you went into the danger room. She sweat dropped when Naruto fell down with a cloud over his head and sulked. You blow it up one time. And it was Logan who did the most damage. Later, Naruto was watching everyone do a stealth mission to save a captured storm grumbling. Figures the one time it's training that's right up my alley and I can't do it. He said crossing his arms until he heard Cyclops scream. Stop the simulation. Naruto and Charles went down as Phoenix and Emma stood by the door having finished their part in the simulation. Aurora and Logan walked out taking off a rubber mask and wigs with Logan brown and Aurora's black. Scott, you know you're not to stop a simulation unless you're hurt. Charles said as Nightcrawler stood up rubbing his chest. Why is Rogue in this? She wasn't in the briefing. Scott replied as Charles laced his fingers. You'll need to expect the unexpected. Anyway, it's time for school. Charles finished wheeling away as Cyclops looked at the rogue robot. Bayville High School. Naruto, wearing a black sweatshirt, walked beside Jean in a beige one. Too bad Scott decided to stay home for our trip. She said as Naruto smirked. He just wanted to stay with Emma since she just transferred here and can't go. She wrapped her arms around his left one and smiled. Yeah. Also I think having Rogue in our simulation jarred him. As they passed a door, Darkham walked out of the shadows before walking into the karate club's room. When she opened the door, she saw Rogue in black sweatpants and a tank top looking at Naruto who was strapping snowmobiles to a trailer hooked to the bus. He's never going to be your friend, you know that, right? Principal Darkham. Rogue replied startled before compassing herself. Who, Naruto? I ain't interested in him. She said before walking over to a punching bag and punched it several times. Really? Have you forgotten how Mr. Uzumaki and his friends attacked you? Just this morning I overheard them doing battle simulations with you as the target. She finished dropping a book bag down and walked away. Outside, Naruto was helping Jean put her bags away as their teacher, a balding brown-haired man, walked up. Bad news. Administration won't clear your time off for the trip. Too many absent days. Naruto raised an eyebrow before speaking. But those were all cleared. He nodded before looking to Jean. I wish we could clear this up. But your spot's been filled. She sighed before she picked her bags from the bus's storage. Who filled her spot? Naruto asked as the teacher pointed to Rouge, who's wearing a trench coat. New student. Naruto glanced back to Jean before looking back to the smirking rogue. Later, mountainside. Snow came down as the teacher sighed. "We may have to go home if it snows too much, kids," he said, making the teens groan. As the bus went around the turn, it skids back and forth as Naruto dropped a piece of paper covering his seat in a genjutsu illusion technique. He created a clone that went out the window and jumped ahead to a turn just as the bus slid sideways. Oten. Dorakeki. Earth release. Earth-style wall. A small wall of snow came up and kept the bus from falling. "Okay, we're turning around," the teacher said before Rogue stood up. "Why don't we take the snowmobiles up till the storm dies down? It'll be safer." After getting the snowmobiles out, Naruto and Paul drove ahead of the others just as Rogue and a blonde-haired girl came up beside them. "Want a race?" she asked as he smirked. "You're on." They sped up through the woods, jumping over banks of snow before getting back to the path by the mountain. Suddenly, Rouge came up and hits Naruto twice, getting him to tip off the edge, then left. "Lean in," he yelled, leaning to his left as Paul followed. They stopped and looked to Rogue. "I think she wanted to hurt you," Paul said as Naruto nodded. "Yeah. What was that about?" he asked before driving up and saw Rogue leaning on her snowmobile as the other girl was throwing up off to the side. Naruto got off and took off his helmet. "Now where did a southern belle like you learn to drive a snowmobile like that?" Rogue smiled as she walked up and trailed a finger across his jaw. "I've got my secrets, sugar." Charles Xavier's School for the Gifted. Charles was reading a book before his wheelchair was pushed against the wall by a force. "Hello, Charles." Charles looked to see a man wearing a red and blue helmet, a purple cape and red chest armor floating outside his window. "Magneto. Why are you here?" he asked, trying to move his wheelchair. "To congratulate your charges. They're flourishing under your tutelage." "I'm very proud of them," Charles replied as Magneto chuckled. "But you don't trust them?" Charles raised an eyebrow at him. "I trust them with my life." He was suddenly brought to the window as it closed. But not the truth. The window broke as Magneto flew away. Later, Logan, chewing on a toothpick, looked to Charles and sighed. "Why not tell them, Chuck?" Charles sighed as he laced his fingers. "Tell them what? That their enemy and principal are one and the same." Logan walked over and puts his hands in his pockets. "Look, Chuck. If there's anything they're used to doing, it's keeping their cool and keeping their secrets. You've taught them a lot." Logan finished as Aurora and Jean walked in. "Bad news, there's a terrible snowstorm hitting the mountains," Aurora said before Jean picked up. "That's where Naruto and the others are at for the field trip." Charles looked at her with a surprised look. "Weren't you supposed to be on that trip?" "Yeah, until Darkholm removed me for her little rogue." Charles sighed before looking to them. "Something's up." As they walked wheeled away, Jean looked to see Scott talking to Emma. "So what's your story, Emma?" Scott asked as Emma smiled. "Nothing exciting. I was born into a prestigious family and was top of my class. Although I used my then new powers at first. And a year ago I believe I found out about this school and it interested me." She finished before feeling her phone vibrate. She sighed as she looked down and hits ignore. "Sorry, wrong number." "I'm always getting them," she said before taking a cup of tea and looked to him. "What about you?" "My parents and little brother died in a plane crash and I was injured on the head and was in a coma for a while. When my powers came up, Professor X came to me and offered me help." Naruto, cave. Naruto groaned silently as the teacher went on about the formation of metamorphic rocks. He suddenly looked to see Rogue wander off before picking up his flashlight and followed. After following her for a minute, he saw a waterfall and walked forward. Once going to the edge, he looked downwards to see a deep drop. "Okay, what do you want?" Naruto turned to see Rogue glaring at him. "What are you talking about?" he asked, making her narrow her eyes. "Am I a target for you and your ex-freaks?" He looked down, making her sigh. "It's true, isn't it? I know about your battle simulations. Where I'm the target. Where you're the one we're rescuing," Naruto said, making her turn around. "Well, I don't want any part with y'all," she said until Paul walked over and spoke up. "Hey, we're looking for you." Rogue walked past him and continued. "Paul here is your friend, but I bet you'd never practice with him in your simulations. You'd lose that bet, Rogue." Paul turned into Darkholm and walked up to Naruto. "Surprised to see me, Naruto?" she asked, transforming into her true form. "You know, I thought your clothes disappeared when you first go back into your real form." Both Mystique and Rogue deadpanned at him. "What?" "That's what Logan told me." Taking a breath, Mystique walked to him. "You X-Men are nothing but puppets for Charles Xavier and I am a sharp blade ready to cut your strings just so I can watch you fall." She finished pushing Naruto off the ledge. "No." Rogue yelled, running over and looked down, not seeing Naruto. "What did you do?" she asked as Mystique smiled. "I'm protecting you, dear, from his lies." Just like the other X-Men. Rogue narrowed her eyes before speaking up. And Paul? Mystique transformed into Paul and held a hand out. Miscommunication on the trip's time. Now come on, let's go break the tragic news. Rogue pulled her right glove off and grabbed Mystique's hand, getting all of her memories from when the X-Men attacked her. Naruto. Down with Naruto, he jumped up on a small edge and looked up. Well. That was unexpected. But that's what happens when women can't keep their hands off of me. He looked up to see Mystique jump down, only to transform into Rogue. Are you? Rogue deadpanned at him before answering. I'm Rogue. Naruto suddenly looked up and saw Mystique push a boulder down to them. Look out. Naruto grabbed Rogue bridal style and jumped down, sliding on the rock before jumping in a river as he got close to it. They swam back up and gasped for air as they were swept away by the current and came up to a big waterfall. Grab on. Naruto grabbed her and added chakra to his legs as he kicked to the ledge. Only for it to break and forcing them to fall on an ice bridge that cracked as they hit it. Well, that hurt. Naruto said, holding his head as a bruise formed on his forehead. Oh man, we're going to die. Naruto looked back to Rogue, who looked down to the drop. Charles, Storm, and Wolverine. Put a little more sunshine in it. We're moving too slow. Wolverine said, flying the X-jet as Storm glared. I'm a weather witch. Not a snowplow. She replied as Charles held his head in concentration before feeling Naruto. Naruto, can you tell us where you are? He asked, and after a moment. Naruto answered. Near some waterfall, Mystique's attacking Rogue and I. After a second, they saw several explosions from kunai being thrown up in the air. There. As they caught up, they saw Naruto breathe fire, keeping a hawk at bay. Wolverine puts the jet in hover before walking to the door. Okay, give it up, Mystique, or you'll be tangling with a Wolverine. Mystique flew off and Naruto picked up Rogue and jumped over as the jet hovered beside the bridge. After getting them warmed up, Wolverine walked to Rogue. Where's your allegiance, kid? Us or them? Rogue shivered as she answered. If I say them, are you going to kick me out of the jet? Wolverine closes the B-Pit's door and answered. Not our style. We've either earned your trust or we haven't. You. Wolverine smiled as he reached down. Then welcome to the X-Men. Xavier's school for the gifted, nighttime. Naruto leaned back after Charles, Aurora, and Logan explained they knew Mystique was their principal. We had a right to know who our principal was. Jean said as Naruto looked around and didn't see Emma. Out in another room, Emma picked up her ringing phone. I've told you not to call me, yes I know. There are complications. She has a body now, I think it's because of this blonde-haired boy she's sweet on, yes, we may have to wait and change our plans. She finished before hanging up her phone and walking out of the room. Charles, Storm, and Wolverine. Put a little more sunshine in it. We're moving too slow. Wolverine said, flying the X-jet as Storm glared. I'm a weather witch. Not a snowplow. She replied as Charles held his head in concentration before feeling Naruto. Naruto, can you tell us where you are? He asked, and after a moment. Naruto answered. Near some waterfall, Mystique's attacking Rogue and I. After a second, they saw several explosions from kunai being thrown up in the air. There. As they caught up, they saw Naruto breathe fire, keeping a hawk at bay. Wolverine puts the jet in hover before walking to the door. Okay, give it up, Mystique, or you'll be tangling with a Wolverine. Mystique flew off, having Naruto pick up Rogue and jumped over as the jet hovered beside the bridge. After getting them warmed up, Wolverine walked to Rogue. Where's your allegiance, kid? Us or them? Rogue shivered as she answered. If I say them, are you going to kick me out of the jet? Wolverine closes the B-Pit's door and answered. Not our style. We've either earned your trust or we haven't. You. Wolverine smiled as he reached down. Then welcome to the X-Men. Xavier's school for the gifted, nighttime. Naruto leaned back after Charles, Aurora, and Logan explained they knew Mystique was their principal. We had a right to know who our principal was. Jean said as Naruto looked around and didn't see Emma. Out in another room, Emma picked up her ringing phone. I've told you not to call me, yes I know. There are complications. She has a body now, I think it's because of this blonde-haired boy she's sweet on, yes, we may have to wait and change our plans. She finished before hanging up her phone and walking out of the room. Now. Bayville High School, Evan, after class. Oh man. Professor X is going to ground me for the rest of my life. Evan said, looking at his essay with Star Wars on it, along with a D. Mr. Daniels, could I talk to you? His teacher asked as he finished cleaning the board. Evan walked over as his teacher looked to him. I'll admit I asked for a report on the Star Wars program, but I wasn't talking about the movie. But I like movies. Evan replied as his teacher nodded. But I was going for the National Space Defense Program. His teacher said, pointing at his report. Yeah, I got that from the D. Evan replied, looking down. Hey look, is there anything I could do to make his up? His teacher looked thoughtful for a moment before looking to his desk. Perhaps there is something. He opened his top drawer and pulled out a small camera. Whoa, a Digicam. How cool is that? Evan asked, taking the camera and opened the screen on the side. You know, Evan, current events can mean a lot of things, including things that are important to kids your age. They don't need to be big, just have to mean a lot to you. How would you like to do a film report on that? His teacher asked as Evan smiled and walked out. Project is due at the end of the week. I suggest you get started. Evan walked to a window to test the camera. Whoa. I can see the institute from here. He said as he saw Logan ride his motorcycle up to the gate and took off his helmet. Suddenly, a blue hand grabbed his shirt, making him bring spikes out of his hand, knuckles, and forearm. Kurt. I almost toothpicked you. Evan said, looking to see Kurt go in and out of his disguise. Sorry, watch is on the fritz and I've got to go home before anyone sees me. But I've got to miss some classes, can you cover for me? Kurt asked as Evan nodded and held up the camera. Sure, I'll tape it for you. He relied as Kurt left in a cloud of smoke. As Evan went back inside, he never noticed a glint from a few blocks away. Naruto, a few minutes later. Come on Naruto, just one kiss. Rachel said, holding on to his left arm as Jean's eyebrow twitched. No Rachel, not while we're at school. She pouted before huffing and pulled his arm deeper into his chest. Fine. Jean looked down to her watch and cursed. I'm late. See you later Naruto. She said before giving Naruto a kiss and left along with Rachel, who blew him a kiss. Naruto sighed before walking around a corner and saw Rogue and Kitty talking to a teen boy about trying out for a play about Dracula. He saw Kitty blush a little as she talked to him and growled a little. Creak. Naruto blinked as he heard metal creak before looking to his right and saw he bent a metal railing on the stairs. You should just get with them, kid. You already got Jean, Rachel, and maybe Wanda. Naruto heard Kurama speak up before sighing. Jean and Rachel are technically the same person, and Wanda. We're easing into it ever since I brought it up about what Tsunade said in that scroll. I don't want to bring them in if they don't want to. He walked over as Rogue looked forward and saw Evan with a black baseball hat on backwards filming them. Hey girls. You going to try out for the play? Naruto asked, making the girls turn to him as Evan walked up. I am. Kitty replied as Rogue smirked. I am too. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the competitiveness between the two girls. Well, I'm sure you two will be great in it. Naruto said with a smile, making them blush a little. I'll be sure to get as close as I can to the stage. Later, Evan just away from the school. Man, what was that about? Evan asked, rubbing his head after he was knocked down. He looked through his camera before seeing Todd. Hey Daniels. I heard you're making a film. Todd did a handstand before pushing off to a windowsill, jumped back and slid down the railing. Start filming. He finished as Evan ignored him. No, was Talansky. I have too much respect for my work. As Evan skated down the sidewalk, he heard a loud engine before seeing Naruto drive past him and his car. Wonder where he's off to by himself. He asked before following after Naruto for a few miles, keeping a few cars back away from him. He saw Naruto stop at an institute for the mentally ill and walk inside. Who could Naruto know here? He thought before walking in and saw a Caucasian female with long brown hair at a desk. Are you here to see someone, sir? She asked as Evan shook his head. Not someone who's been admitted. A friend of mine just walked through the door. Naruto. Yes, Mr. Uzumaki. He's in room 104. Just sign these forms. It's a formality. Nodding, Evan signed the papers before walking down the hall and saw the room. Looking in the small window, he recorded Naruto talking to Wanda before seeing him look to the window. Come on in, Evan. Wanda looked back, with blue sparks came off her hand. Easy Wanda, he's a friend from home. Evan. This is Wanda Maximoff. She calmed down as Naruto continued to talk to her with Evan recording them. Naruto started teaching her Tai-Kai moves before glancing at the camera. Can't help her with her powers today. He thought, smiling at her before picking up a board game to play. As they left, Wanda grabbed Naruto's hand, so he turned to her. What's wrong, Wan? HMMF. He stopped as she smashed her lips to his. After a minute she pulled back, bringing his lower lip with her before letting go. Bye Naruto. As they left the institute in Naruto's car, Evan looked to Naruto. Who was that? Why did she kiss you? Does the others know you're visiting a loony bin? Naruto sighed at Evan's questions before speaking up. She's a friend Charles introduced me to when I first came to Bayville. I was as surprised as you were about that kiss, but I guess she has feelings for me, and yes, she also knows about Rachel and Jean. And before you ask, yes, the adults know as well as Scott and Jean know I visit her. Xavier's school for the gifted, the next morning 6 o'clock a.m. Naruto was taking a shower and washing his hair in the large bathroom as he thought about the kiss Wanda gave him. I guess she wants to give it a try. The door suddenly opened up. Rachel, wearing only a towel, snuck in and reached for the shower door. Rachel. Naruto jumped and slipped to the floor as Jean, wearing an oversized shirt, waked in and locked the door. "What are you doing?" Rachel looked back to her with a raised eyebrow. "I was going to take a shower with Naruto." Jean crossed her arms under her bust and glared. "What? It'll save water. Besides, you do it with him too, so don't act all high and mighty." Naruto groaned as he sat up. "I remember when life was simple with only one girlfriend. And now I have one that acts like Iro Sennin, pervy sage." He thought as he finished up, wrapped a towel around his waist and Haratian, flying thunder god, to his room. A moment later, he walked out in black jeans and a dark red shirt. "You'd better let us take a look at your film before you send it off. Understand?" Naruto walked past Aurora as she talked to Evan, who was just getting up. "I understand." Naruto continued down to the kitchen to eat breakfast. "Hey, what are you doing? Get that camera out of here." Slam. Naruto heard Emma yell before a door slammed shut. "He'll learn one way or another," he said as the others walked in and ate. Outside, Wolverine and Cyclops. Wolverine set up the training exercise by a small keyboard that came up from the ground. Field Battle Simulator 7. Activate. They ran through traps that came up beside the sidewalk, along with lasers and nets. "Watch your six." Cyclops yelled out as Wolverine turned around and cuts a net. As they ran through, Evan recorded everything on his skateboard. He passed Cyclops, who fell as a bullet wraps around his legs. "Look out." He turned to see saw blades flying at him along with Wolverine. Wolverine pushed him out of the way and deflected the blades to the house and woods. Wolverine roughly pulled Evan to his feet. "What do you think you're doing here, bub? Those things could have taken your head clean off." "I was just." Evan stopped as Wolverine picked his camera and erased the training. "Hey," he yelled as Wolverine pulled the screen open. "What else have you got on this thing?" Wolverine re-winded to seeing him pull up at the Institute before Sabretooth came up on it, smiling. "Thanks for showing me where Logan is, kid. I owe you one." Suddenly an alarm went off as they ran to the front gate. Saw Sabretooth. "Logan, I thought you kept Sabretooth from finding out you were here." Wolverine heard Charles in his head before replying. "I did, he had help." Soon, everyone in his or her X-Men suits ran out, including Rogue. She's wearing a dark navy blue bodysuit. Gold platelets with the X logo are on both of her shoulders, while a green platelet going around her bust area. A gold utility belt also with an X logo goes around her waist, while small platelets are on her knees. She has knee-high boots and thick brown gloves worn on both of her hands. Storm hits Sabretooth with lightning as Cyclops hits him with his laser. Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Naruto hits him with a blue ball, forcing Sabretooth to the wall and break through it. Later. Naruto walked past the study as Evan was listening to Wolverine talk to Charles about Sabretooth finding out where he was by Evan recording him coming to the Institute. "Hey, I need to practice too." Naruto turned to see Rogue and Kitty arguing over using the soundtrack for the play. "Eyes. Just the people I was looking for." "Listen. I think we can help each other out. But it'll take some improvising," he said before walking with them to the garage and left in Naruto's car. Soon Wolverine came out and walked down the stairs and saw Scott with his keys. "Going for a bit too?" "No, you're not, bub. Until I deal with Fuzzball, no one's leaving the premise." "Where's everyone else?" Wolverine asked as Scott sighed. "Rachel, Jean, Emma and Kurt are upstairs, and I think I saw the others leave in Naruto's car. Naruto, Rogue, Kitty, and Evan." "Ooh, take it off." Naruto yelled, getting the dancing girls to stop and blush. "Oh, Rogue. You need to loosen up, shake that thing, girl." Evan said, ignoring the catcalls Naruto have been giving since they started. "I know, why don't you touch Kitty and get her moves?" Rogue and Kitty looked uncertain. "Just a tap to absorb her moves." "Might work. Just concentrate on them." Rogue removed her right glove and touched fingers with Kitty, getting them to shiver. "Like that was totally irksome," Rogue said, sounding like Kitty. "Oh man, am I talking like her?" Once the music started, Rogue started dancing like Kitty and they started dancing together. "That's what I'm talking about." Naruto yelled until he felt something behind him. Reaching behind his shirt, Naruto brought out a bow staff and twirled it around his fingers just as Sabretooth jumped at him. Naruto dodged a swipe and started hitting him with his staff a few times before putting one end under his chin and slammed him down on it as the other hits the ground. "Messing with kids, Sabretooth. That pisses me off." Wolverine came out and jumped on the recovering Sabretooth, who lifted his legs and kicked Wolverine away as he got up. A hand touched him, forcing him to scream and fall down to the ground unconscious. Naruto looked to see Rogue grit her teeth as her hair grew longer to mid-back, grew fur, and became more muscular under her neck, ripping her stockings, glove, and shoes. She also grew claws and fangs. "Aw man, I just shaved my legs last night," she complained, moving her hair out of the way. She felt a hand grab one of her white bangs and blinked. Long hair really suits you, Rogue. She looked back to see Naruto smiling at her. Trim it up and you'll be even more stunning than you are now. She blushed before shuffling on her feet. Why? It's not like I'll have a boy. She stopped as Naruto tapped her forehead with 2 fingers. Don't say that. He said, getting the others to gasp. What? He asked, looking back to them, leaving his fingers on Rogue. Like, how come you're not in pain? You were when we tried to get her at her home. Kitty asked as Naruto blinked before answering. I had Kurama put up barrier. He stopped as Rogue hugged him and cried. Easy, Rogue, let it out. He said, rubbing her back. You really do need a shave. Ow. Naruto let go to start hopping on his left foot as he held his right one. And the moment's ruined. Kitty said, watching Rogue cross her arms and the still hopping Naruto. A few days later, school play. Naruto and the others sat to watch the Dracula play as Rogue and Kitty danced in their costume, with Rogue having her long hair in a bun with her white bangs coming down to her shoulders. Glad she decided to keep the long hair. Naruto stated as the play continued. As the play finished, both Kitty and Rogue looked towards the audience, seeing Naruto and glad that he came. A few days later, Evan also got great inspiration for his film about his new family in Bayville. And how they will always look after each other and how they'll be there for him. She felt a hand grab one of her white bangs and blinked. Long hair really suits you, Rogue. She looked back to see Naruto smiling at her. Trim it up and you'll be even more stunning than you are now. She blushed before shuffling on her feet. Why? It's not like I'll have a boy. She stopped as Naruto tapped her forehead with 2 fingers. Don't say that. He said, getting the others to gasp. What? He asked, looking back to them, leaving his fingers on Rogue. Like, how come you're not in pain? You were when we tried to get her at her home. Kitty asked as Naruto blinked before answering. I had Kurama put up barrier. He stopped as Rogue hugged him and cried. Easy, Rogue, let it out. He said, rubbing her back. You really do need a shave. Ow. Naruto let go to start hopping on his left foot as he held his right one. And the moment's ruined. Kitty said, watching Rogue cross her arms and the still hopping Naruto. A few days later, school play. Naruto and the others sat to watch the Dracula play as Rogue and Kitty danced in their costume, with Rogue having her long hair in a bun with her white bangs coming down to her shoulders. Glad she decided to keep the long hair. Naruto stated as the play continued. As the play finished, both Kitty and Rogue looked towards the audience, seeing Naruto and glad that he came. A few days later, Evan also got great inspiration for his film about his new family in Bayville. And how they will always look after each other and how they look out for each other. Now. Stokes County Security Facility. The policeman walked in a big room with nothing in it. He pressed a button beside the door and a circular tank rose up out of the floor, showing a tall muscular man with short brown hair sleeping with green liquid filling the tube. He's also wearing dark red armor, type Juggernaut evolution for a better picture. The policeman pressed another button, having the liquid drain as he shifted his form into Mystique. Hey Marco. I think it's time for a family reunion with your dear brother Charles Xavier. She said as Kane opened his eyes and glared. She went on to explain she needed him to break into the institute to get Cerebro, as she picked up a large helmet and locks it onto his shoulders. Kane roughly pushed her away as he broke through the door and went down the hall. Ironback Survival Camp. We will not be making wallets, neckties, or paperweights. Said a muscular man in shorts, boots, white shirt with a whistle, hat, and sunglasses to the X-Men members, without Emma and the Brotherhood along with other teens in front of a school bus. You will not engage in sack races, pony rides, or water balloon fights. You will be taking 20-mile hikes, propelling 200-foot cliffs and treacherous waters with nothing more than a rope and all the courage you can muster. Am I clear? Yes, Sergeant Hawk, sir. Said the group of teens as Sergeant Hawk looked to them. I said, am I clear? Sergeant Hawk said, crossing his arms, making the teens yell louder. Yes, Sergeant Hawk, sir. He nodded at them. Then welcome to Ironback Survival Camp. A name you won't soon forget. Sergeant Hawk finished before walking away as the X-Men groaned, minus Naruto, who's wearing faded jeans and a black combat vest with a bunch of pockets on it that's unzipped, showing his bare chest. Scott was wearing a light brown sleeveless shirt with jeans. Kurt's wearing bike short with a pack around his waist and a rust red shirt. Jean has her hair in a braided ponytail with beige shorts and a blue-green sleeveless shirt. Rachel's wearing the same outfit but with a red shirt and black shorts. Rouge also had her hair in a braided ponytail with tight black pants with a white stripe on them and a green hoodie with the sleeves pulled up to her elbows. Kitty's wearing overalls with the legs cut off and Evan was wearing a gray shirt. Now Mr. Uzumaki here. Sergeant Hawk stopped in front of Naruto, whose scholastic achievements at Bayville High has earned him the rank of group leader. You will be following his lead. Now you have 10 minutes to stow your gear and report to the training fields. Dismissed. The teens but the X-Men and the Brotherhood left. Like I'll be dead in 2 days. Kitty complained sitting on her suitcase. Well, what about me? I'm a city kid. Evan said as Ruse picked up her bag. I'm going AWOL, anyone know how to hotwire a bus? She asked turning to the bus. Only to be stopped by both Naruto and Scott. Whoa, now wait. Let's give it a chance. Prof. X endorses this place. Scott said as Naruto coughed. Always knew he had some sort of mean streak. He said under his breath. Yeah, besides he gave us a choice training here or with Wolverine. Jean said as Rachel walked over. Well, we could have done what Emma did and say we had a family emergency and get out of both. They left to the cabins as the Brotherhood stood back and watched them. Later, they are running an obstacle course on top of a hill of climbing a rope. Naruto and Lance got to the top of the beam and then ziplined down to a river. They ran to 2 of the rubber rafts and Lance looked up to Naruto. Can you swim? Yes, but I'm already halfway to the finish line. The Naruto and raft disappeared, showing Naruto halfway to the finish line. Come on Lance, you're daydreaming. Sergeant Hawk yelled out, seeing Lance stare off into space. Lance quickly got in the raft as the others started arguing as Naruto made it to shore and to the finish line. Later, after making them do 60 push-ups, Sergeant Hawk explained he planted a flag on top of Mount Humiliation and he wants both teams to go for the flag along with a picture proving it. And it's your whole team or no one, am I clear? He asked, making them nod. You leave in 5 on opposite trails. He left as the others walked off. You better say your farewells, Uzumaki. Naruto looked back to see Lance pointing at him. Because you're not coming back. Naruto walked up to him and glared. Big word salad bowl, but remember this. Every time we went up against each other. I beat you with no powers or one move. Naruto said as Lance snorted. I never used mine either when I go up against you. We don't need to use them to win. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Okay, no powers. We'll wave at you from the top. Naruto finished as Jean walked up to them. Okay, so we're agreed, no powers, she said as they left, and she continued. And I for one am glad you're. She stopped as Naruto grabbed her and lifted her over his shoulder. Come on Jean. He said as she rested her head on her hand. Xavier's school for the gifted. Logan walked into the study as Charles was using Cerebro. Picking up new mutants? He asked as Charles shook his head. No, just the students. Logan snorted before speaking up. I still think you should have let me handle their training. Before Charles could speak up, Cerebro's alarm went off. Discovery. Enhanced mutant signature. Identity confirmed. Unmatched Archive 5. Archive 5 who? Charles stopped as Kane came up on the screen. No. He said as Cerebro continued. Name. Kane Marco. Residence. Stokes County Security Prison. Current location in transit upstate New York. Logan raised an eyebrow until Charles explained Kane is his half-brother and was born with a dormant X gene that manifested later on through mysticism. And he's invulnerable to anything and has super strength. Storm, Kane's escape and is on his way here. Can you create a distraction? Charles spoke to Aurora mentally before getting confirmation from her. I'll prep the danger room. That'll be where you should go in case I can't stop him. Logan said, going to the elevator. A few minutes later, Charles saw on the news heavy fog surrounding the area Kane would be in getting to the institute. Good work, Storm. He thought before Logan walked inside the study. Well, if no one can see Kane, no one would be foolish enough to try and recapture him. Charles said, wheeling over as Logan nodded. I've prepped the danger room. So do you have any defense against him? Logan asked as they went into the elevator. Yes, my mind. With enough psychic blasts. I can disable him unless he's wearing his helmet. But the X-Men. Naruto jogged down the trail with Scott and Rachel keeping up with him as the others trailed behind him. Wow, you really are city kids. And Rogue, really? You're from Mississippi. I thought hiking through the woods was an ordinary thing for people from the south. He asked as Rogue stuck her tongue out at him. Don't give me that. Get your cute ass up here. So how much further? Rachel asked as Naruto looked up at the mountain. Not too far. Hopefully Lance and the others kept the no powers rule. They continued to hike up to near the top of the mountain before Naruto looked up. See the flag? Naruto looked back to see Kurt walking to him. No. Too far away. Naruto started searching the pockets on his vest. Where are the binoculars? The others caught up as Naruto looked to Jean. Anyway, I could convince you to float up until you see if the flag's still there. She glared at him as she crossed her arms. What? I'm not asking you to take it. Never mind, I found them. He picked up binoculars from his right chest pocket and looked up there. I see it and I don't see the Brotherhood either. Naruto reached into his left chest pocket and pulled out blue climbing row and unwrapped it. Let's see. Where's the hook? He looked back to Jean again. Would it count as using his powers if I used one of Evan's spikes to use as a makeshift hook? She just glared at him, making him sigh. Hey, I said if I used his spike. He reached to his side pocket and found a hook before tying the rope to it and threw it up to the next leveled spot. They started climbing up, with Naruto first and Evan last. As everyone but Evan got to the end of the rope, they felt the mountain shake, causing Evan to fall. AAHHH. Jean and Rachel used their telekinesis to grab him and bring him back up. Oh, even when you break the rules you're not breaking them. Naruto said, crossing his arms as Rachel smirked, walked up to him and whispered in his ear. Oh. Did you want to punish us? She nibbled on his ear before continuing. You still can. I got the equipment. Naruto sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Hey, it's Lance and the others. Rogue said, looking down a mineshaft with a broken ladder. Hey, don't leave us down here, not for a flag. Todd said, through a rock pile that's surrounding them and the entrance with a ladder. We won't. Naruto said before bringing the rope over. After getting everyone out, Pietro and Kurt went to the flag and grabbed it at the same time. Guys. Naruto and the others looked up to see the Blackbird being flown by Storm. Charles and Mystique are both in danger. Naruto glanced over to Lance. Truce until we help them. Lance and the Brotherhood nodded before they took a picture of all of them at the flag and left in the jet, dropping the flag and picture as they passed Sergeant Hawk. Charles and Wolverine. An alarm went off as Wolverine pulled his mask over his face. He's here. Get to the danger room. Logan said, walking to the front room and saw Juggernaut. He brought out his claws before jumping over and sliced at Juggernaut. Juggernaut punched Wolverine through several walls and threw Cerebro before stomping on him, having him go through the floor and drop in front of the danger room. Juggernaut dropped down the floor, threw Wolverine at the door and charged through the door, knocking Wolverine out before looking up and saw Charles. You lumbering imbecile. Mystique walked in front of Juggernaut and glared. What did you do? Sit on Cerebro? I thought we had deal. Juggernaut shoved her to Charles before speaking up. I don't make deals. He yelled, walking over. Charles. Aren't you going to welcome me home? Juggernaut asked before he started walking over. You ungrateful thug. She yelled as he said nothing. Kane. It doesn't have to be like this is a place for new beginnings. Charles said as Juggernaut continued walking over. You're right. This is the beginning for me and the end for you. Suddenly, blades and maces came out of the walls and floor, only to be broken as Juggernaut walked through them. As he got near them, Juggernaut was suddenly lifted in the air. Mystique and Charles looked to see the X-Men and the Brotherhood in their costumes, with Jean struggling to keep Juggernaut in the air. Remove his helmet. Wolverine said as he struggled to get up. The Blob tackled Juggernaut and smirked. Unstoppable. Meet the unmovable. Nightcrawler transported to Juggernaut's back and unlocked one of the 4 locks. Juggernaut threw him away before punching the Blob to the other side of the room. Cyclops hits him with an eye blast as Naruto hits him with a Rasengan, spiraling sphere, having him hit the wall. Quicksilver dashed over and unlocked a lock before dashing away. Storm made a gust of wind, forcing him to his knees, and had Shadowcat and Rogue unlock the final 2 locks. Toad used his tongue to remove the helmet, having Charles attack Juggernaut's mind. Emma, unknown location. Emma, in a room lit by candles, stared at the people in cloaks sitting at a wooden table. So, she's dating someone who's strong? So what? Asked Amael as Emma crossed her arms under her bust. He's someone who can destroy anything to get her back. And I mean anything. She replied, staring at the man. So we need to be careful around Naruto or we'll be in his crosshairs. Emma said as the others nodded. Yes. We're not even ready to hold her. Getting a body has thrown our plans out the window and threw us back close to years in preparation. A woman said as Emma sighed. I know. But she's preoccupied with Naruto. She hasn't done anything or noticed me. She finished before turning around and leaving as the candles went out. A few days later, Stokes County Maximum Security Prison. Charles looked at his sleeping brother before hearing Logan behind him. You can't control the wills of others, Charles. They do what they want. Charles looked back to see Naruto and Jean standing at the door. I know, Logan. And we do what we have to. He pressed a button, having Kane go down into the floor before leaving with the others. Cyclops hits him with an eye blast as Naruto hits him with a Rasengan, spiraling sphere, having him hit the wall. Quicksilver dashed over and unlocked a lock before dashing away. Storm made a gust of wind, forcing him to his knees, and had Shadowcat and Rogue unlock the final 2 locks. Toad used his tongue to remove the helmet, having Charles attack Juggernaut's mind. Emma, unknown location. Emma, in a room lit by candles, stared at the people in cloaks sitting at a wooden table. So, she's dating someone who's strong? So what? Asked Amael as Emma crossed her arms under her bust. He's someone who can destroy anything to get her back, and I mean anything. She replied, staring at the man. So we need to be careful around Naruto or we'll be in his crosshairs. Emma said as the others nodded. Yes, we're not even ready to hold her. Getting a body has thrown our plans out the window and threw us back close to years in preparation. A woman said as Emma sighed. I know. But she's preoccupied with Naruto, she hasn't done anything or noticed me. She finished before turning around and leaving as the candles went out. A few days later, Stokes County Maximum Security Prison. Charles looked at his sleeping brother before hearing Logan behind him. You can't control the wills of others, Charles. They do what they want. Charles looked back to see Naruto and Jean standing at the door. I know, Logan, and we do what we have to. He pressed a button, having Kane go down into the floor before leaving with the others. Now. Xavier's School for the Gifted, early morning. Naruto, wearing only black camouflage pajama pants, was walking down the hall drinking a bottle of water. AAHH. He dropped the bottle as he heard Rogue scream. He ran down the hall and into the shared room of Kitty and Rogue. What's wrong? He asked, seeing Rogue panting and sweating with a few strands of her hair sticking to her forehead. I don't know, I was dreaming. Rogue said, holding her head as Kitty stood beside the bed. Yeah, her shrieking totally freaked me out. Kitty said as Naruto walked over and sat down beside Rogue. Was it about the finals? Did you have that dream where you were in the school in your underwear? You can tell me, leave nothing out, no matter how descriptive. The two girls deadpanned at him as Jean, Scott, Rachel, and Evan, walking in their sleepwears. Made you forget the nightmare, didn't I? Naruto finished as Rogue looked to Kurt and her eyes widened. It was you. Naruto looked saddened at that. What? Kurt. You're dreaming about him? I thought you would be dreaming about me. Rachel smiled as she hugged him from behind. Well, I've been dreaming about you. Want to make them a reality? She asked, nibbling on his ear. Let's at least wait until we're 18. Naruto replied as the others were talking to Rogue about her nightmare. Suddenly, Charles spoke up with his telepathy. Let's talk about this. Kurt, Rogue, come down with Jean and Naruto. We'll learn more about this vision. Everyone but the requested four went back to bed before they walked to the study and saw Charles waiting for them by the fireplace. They discussed Rogue's dream about a castle and a woman who was escaping with a baby with blue fur before dropping him in a river. I knew my parents adopted me, but I never knew about being fished out of the river. Kurt said as he folded his hands in front of him. Don't worry, Kurt, we'll sort this out. Charles said before looking to the couch where Naruto was sitting in between the girls. Rogue, since this was your dream, why don't I start with you? Could you sit here? He asked, gesturing to the chair beside him. She walked over and sat down as Charles wheeled in front of her. He put his hands on the sides of his head and scanned her and saw the dream before pulling off of her. Apparently, Rogue, what you're experiencing is a dream. It's actually a repressed memory, Kurt's memory to be specific. Possibly due to your first absorption experience with him. Naruto looked down in thought before looking up as Charles excused them for the night. Naruto waited for them to leave before turning his gaze towards the professor. It's Mystique, right? Charles looked to him in surprise as Naruto continued. They have the same energy, plus Mystique's the only one old enough to be around when Kurt was a baby. Not only that, but Rogue did touch her when we last encountered her during the snow trip, so she could have absorbed her memories as well. Charles sighed as he nodded. Yes, she's Kurt's mother. Her allegiances aside. Why didn't she stay in touch with him? From what I gathered from the dream, she hated Magneto for performing the experiment on her son. Charles looked to him in surprise. What? You told me she's been with him for a few years longer than that. And he's the only one she would actually trust. Naruto finished with air quotes on trust. Next day, Bayville High. Naruto, wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans, cleared the vent he was crawling in of cobwebs before coming to an opening where Charles was talking to Darkholm about Kurt. For what's its worth. He grew up into a fine boy. Naruto quickly teleported outside by Rachel, who was walking to Jean and Scott. I need to know the truth about my life. Naruto turned to see Kurt talking to Rogue before quickly taking his ho-ho disguise off and teleporting away. What was that about? Naruto asked, walking over as Rogue sighed and explained that he's upset about finding his birth parents. As they left, they never noticed a boy walking behind them with a sad expression or a girl hiding behind a locker. Later, Naruto was walking alongside Jean at the mansion before stopping her. Hold up, Prof. X says Kurt's gone and wants us to look through his room for any clues as to where he went. They walked in and started searching. What exactly are we looking for? Jean asked as she went through his dresser. Anything that says Pietro was here. Charles said he was here earlier. Quicksilver? Are you sure? She asked as Naruto looked at a stereo. Well, you know how fast he is. Jean picked up a piece of paper and turned around. Hey, found something. Naruto took a look at it and saw it was in cursive. If you want to know the truth, come to the new mole construction site at sundown. Come alone. At the others, I have a feeling Quicksilver isn't going to let this happen. Naruto said as he walked out of the room. What do you mean, isn't he the one who set this up? Jean asked as Naruto shook his head. No, this is in cursive. And a lot of public schools don't teach that. I'm sure he read it on the way here and wants to stir up trouble. Mall construction site, an hour later. The X-Men caught to find Nightcrawler dodging attacks from the Brotherhood as Mystique tried to stop them. X-Men, move. Toad jumped up in the air and shot his tongue at Spike, who created a long spike to act like a staff. As Toad's tongue wrapped around it, Spike threw him onto a pile of metal pipes. Lob ran at Shadowcat, who phased through him, making him turn his head in surprised confusion and run right into a cement mixer. Naruto dashed over to Avalanche and kicks him right as he was going to attack Jean and Shadowcat. Rogue took off her gloves and touched Avalanche's face, just long enough for him to pass out. She ran behind a truck and saw Mystique trying to run. Oh no you don't. Rogue said before using Avalanche's power, forcing Mystique transform into a crow and flee. The next day, Bayville High. Mystique, disguised as Principal Darkholm, was sitting at her desk, lamenting about how her reunion with her son went terribly wrong. She straightened up when she saw Naruto enter her office. Mr. Uzumaki, can I help something? She asked. He then sat in the chair across from her and said, you can drop your disguise, Mystique. Mystique shifted into her normal self as her brows furrowed. What do you want? She asked as Naruto leaned forward onto her desk and said, for you to start from the beginning. Mystique gave him a confused look and asked, what? She asked as he stared. Tell me the whole reason why a mother would give up her son and stay with a man who experimented on him in the first place. I won't tell Kurt if that's what you're worried about, that'll be for you to tell. But I would like to understand why. Said Naruto, his blue eyes looking directly into her pale white ones. She didn't know why, but somehow she felt as though she could trust the boy. Mystique sighed, stood up, and walked to the large window. I was once married to a German baron named Christian Wagner and lived a good life. All that changed when I met one of his business partners. His name was Azazel. At first glance there was an attraction between us. Later on, I found out that he was a mutant with the ability to shapeshift like me and also could teleport as well. She spoke hesitantly. So then, he's Kurt's real father. Said Naruto. Mystique nodded and continued, after we became intimate, I learned that I was pregnant with his child. But when I went to tell him, he just disappeared and I never saw him since. Christian believed the baby was his, so I didn't question the momentary good fortune. Then came the day when Kurt was born, she sighed before continuing. The birthing process proved too great for me to handle that I ended up shifting back to my normal state. Christian believed that he married a demon, as well as sired one. He intended to kill both of us, starting with the baby I had to do what I needed to protect my son. She said in a solemn tone. Naruto looked at her and said, believe me Mystique, I understand how far a mother would go to protect their child. Remembering what his own mother, Kushina, went through to keep him safe. So, is that when you met Magneto? He asked as she turned and nodded. After I killed Christian, mobs were out for both our blood. I fled into the mountains and came upon a castle, that's when I met him. I begged for sanctuary and he gave it all too willingly. He claimed that he desired to protect all mutant kind, as well as take our proper place in the world. It all seemed well and good, almost too good. She looked down before continuing. Then one night, I woke up to hear my son crying. I followed his cries and found Magneto experimenting on him to see if he could enhance Kurt's powers. It's the reason why he now has my skin pigmentation and his father's bodily traits. After a heated argument I ended up fleeing again into the woods, only this time I ended up attracting a pack of wolves. They chased me through the mountain until I came upon a rope bridge. As I was running across it I tripped and fell, causing me to drop Kurt into the river. I thought my only child, my one ray of joy and happiness was gone forever. Said Mystique, with tears attempting to fall. If that's what happened, then why stay with Magneto all this time? Naruto asked, albeit with a look of sympathy towards Mystique. She then chuckled, honestly, I don't even remember why anymore. Maybe it's just for revenge against humans, since they're the ones that started all this, but even so, it doesn't matter now. I'm in this too deep to get out now. It's never too late to change, no matter how far into your hatred you might be. Said Naruto, remembering the villains he faced in his time. So after what happened in Germany, is that when you came here? He asked. Yes, I thought I might be able to get a fresh start, which I almost did with a woman I met, Irene. She was a mutant with the ability to see into the future. We became friends at first, but then it developed into something much more physical. Mystique said, with a fond smile and a slight blush in her cheeks. Anyway, during our time together, we decided to adopt a little girl. I believed that I could regain what I had lost, but of course, there came more complications. She sighed. I think we can leave it there, for now anyway. Thank you Mystique, for telling me your story, it helped me understand you a bit more. And I promise, I won't tell a soul of anything you said here, especially Kurt. Naruto said as he got up of the chair and went for the door. Wait. Why did you want to know in the first place? Do you think I'll just up and switch sides because we had a small therapy session? She asked. Naruto turned around and said, no, maybe not immediately, but I know that deep down you're a good person. Aside from sensing energies, I can also feel people's inner emotions, and from what I can feel, you're a mother willing to do whatever she must to keep her children safe. Doesn't sound like much of a bad person, to me. Naruto said over his shoulder before a picture appeared on her desk. I fixed the picture for you. I scanned the original and just added you instead. He heard her sob as she saw the picture of a year-old Kurt being held by her and smiled as he closed the door. Xavier's School for the Gifted. Kurt was crouching on the railing of his room's balcony alongside Rogue, contemplating his disbelief of Mystique being his mother. Listen, Kurt, I really do know what you're going through. We'll both keep looking and we'll find our answers someday. Rogue said as Kurt turned to her and smiled. Thanks, Rogue. With that, she left for her room to prepare for the finals tomorrow, not noticing Naruto leaning against the hallway with a smile on his face. He then turned to see Jean wrap her hands around his arm. What are you smiling about? She asked. Oh, just glad knowing that Rogue and Kurt are looking out for each other. Heh, from their conversation, you could almost mistake them for brother and sister. A few days later, Xavier's School for the Gifted morning. Naruto walked out of his room and saw Kitty holding a laptop walking down the hall. Before he could greet her, the others in their sleepwear walked down the hall and into the bathrooms, making Kitty lose her balance and fall into Naruto, who wrapped his arms around her. Well, this is a good morning, indeed. She blushed before backing out of his arms. Sorry, I'm just looking for a quiet spot to write to my parents. Naruto smiled at her, getting her to blush again. My room's opened. He chuckled softly as her whole body turned red at that. No, like I'll find a place. Naruto shrugged at that. Okay, it's a big place. A quiet spot shouldn't be hard to find. Later, Naruto walked to the kitchen as Logan was drinking coffee and reading the paper at the bay window as Kitty typed to her parents at the table that's filled with food. What's the matter, half pint? Am I reading too loud for you? Logan asked, noticing Kitty was staring at him. No, just glad to have a quiet morning for once. Kitty replied just as the others came in, ate, drank, and turned up the TV. Not a morning person, huh, Emma? Naruto asked, seeing Emma's hair as a mess. Shut up. At least I have 2 hours until school starts. Naruto was about to speak up until Logan turned the TV's volume up about a camping site being destroyed in Canada. He muttered under his breath before storming out before Naruto followed after him, glancing at Kitty's laptop and read the last sentence about Logan. I mean, it's not like his life's harder than ours. Naruto sighed as he puts a hand on her head. It is harder, Kitty. The others looked up to him as he continued. He doesn't remember anything from before his experiments. You know, I actually found photos of Logan fighting in World War II, and he's probably been in every war since. Don't even know how old he really is, and of what he previously experienced, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. He finished before walking to the door. How would you know about war? Naruto turned to Evan, who spoke up. I was in a world war when I was 16. I was only in it for just a day or two before we won. 10 years later, I'm still having nightmares. Logan went through at least 3, these last 40+ years. Naruto finished walking out and seeing Kitty try to find a place to type. Later, he walked to the living room where Evan was shooting small spikes at the ceiling. What the hell are you doing? Evan shot one more, making Naruto look up and saw a poster. Festering boils. What the hell kind of name is that? I bet that makes the ladies run. Far away from them. Kitty walked in as Naruto continued. Evan, you have until the count of 5 to stop that and take that back to your room. There's no more room in mine. Evan replied, making Naruto point up. Then put that on your ceiling. You seem to have no problem doing it on this one. Blackbird. Naruto and Kurt, out of his disguise, walked inside the jet and saw Kitty sitting on one of the extra folding seats. Why are you out here? Kurt asked as Kitty crossed her arms under her bust. Out of like necessity. She explained that no matter what or where, she couldn't get any privacy to write. Well, come on, I'm giving you a ride to school. Naruto said as she huffed. She closed her laptop and stood up. Only for the Blackbird to suddenly move and force them to fall, with Kitty falling on top of Naruto. Well, I'm having deja vu. How about you, Kitty? She quickly got up, having Naruto kip up, walked to the bee pit and saw Logan in his costume with his mask pulled down. It's Mr. Logan. Kitty said as Kurt tried to walk up. Naruto stopped him and warily spoke. Wait, he's been acting strange all morning. Kurt snorted at that before walking up. Only for Logan to bring his right fist up and have the claws come out near Kurt's head. Kurt flashed back as Logan held his head. Get back. Naruto reached behind him and pulled a modern karambit knife and slams it into a button near the door. Naruto pulled it out as Logan ran down and sliced the door as it came up, leaving marks in it. Later Canada. Naruto, in his costume, phased through the Blackbird with Shadowcat as Nightcrawler poofed beside them. "Were you able to get in the beep pit?" Shadowcat asked as Nightcrawler nodded. "Yeah, but something's blocking the signal. I can't reach the institute." Naruto looked to where Wolverine went before walking towards the woods. "Not much else we can do but follow Wolverine." After an hour of looking around, they saw Wolverine standing on top of a boulder. "Mr. Logan," Shadowcat said before seeing Wolverine look to them and Sabretooth walk out of the shadows. "Crap. Run." Naruto yelled as they ran with the duo giving chase. Nightcrawler poofed away as Wolverine chased Naruto and Shadowcat. Sabretooth went another way as Naruto pulled Shadowcat with him. Naruto looked back before running off of a hill and slid down with Shadowcat. Naruto quickly got up and put Shadowcat behind him as Wolverine jumped down. "Mr. Logan. It's us," Shadowcat said, having Wolverine stop. Naruto. Kitty Naruto starts moving back, pushing Shadowcat away before Wolverine gave chase again. They split up having Wolverine go after Shadowcat. "Damn it, I thought he would go after me," Naruto said before seeing Shadowcat get pinned at a tree. Wolverine lunged as she closed her eyes. Slink. She heard blades piercing skin but didn't feel pain. She opened her eyes and gasped as Naruto stood in front of her with all 6 of Wolverine's blades piercing his stomach. "Kitty run," Naruto said, grabbing Wolverine and kept him in place. "And Naruto," she said as rain started to fall before looking to Wolverine. She pulled his mask off and looked at him. "Logan, it's us, the X-Men. We all had breakfast together a few hours ago," Shadowcat said just as Nightcrawler poofed beside them. Wolverine pulled his claws out of Naruto, who fell to his knees. Suddenly, Wolverine was attacked by Sabretooth, who tackled him down a hill and disappeared into the woods. Naruto got up on his knee before being tackled by Shadowcat. "Easy kitty, I'm still sore." She sobbed in his chest before looking up. Why would you do that?" Naruto smiled a little before coughing. "You're my friend. Simple as that." He saw her look down for a moment. "Kitty, what's wrong?" HMPH. He was interrupted as Shadowcat roughly kissed him on the lips. She pulled back and looked in his eyes. "Okay, we should really help Logan out now." Naruto looked to see Nightcrawler looking down at them. "Yeah, you two go, I still need to heal, so I'll head back to the Blackbird and see if I can contact the institute," Naruto said as his wound slowly healed while getting up and walking away. Blackbird. After another failed attempt at establishing communications, Naruto heard an explosion, then felt the jet shake. He looked outside and saw a tower of smoke coming up from the mountains. "Kitty," he said in a worried tone. Suddenly, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat, and a very injured Wolverine appeared in a flash of smoke. "Whoa, what exactly did I miss?" he asked. "It's a long story. One I'd rather tell after you get patched up," she said, carrying Logan to the medbay. "Fair enough, looks like you'll be bringing us home, Kurt," he said as Kurt grinned excitedly. "I get to pilot the Blackbird. Sweet," he exclaimed. Naruto chuckled at this, despite the pain. "Yes, but not with your feet. Xavier's school for the gifted, Knight." Naruto, wearing only blue jeans and bandages around his chest and stomach, watched as Kurt kept everyone out of the dining room. "Okay, relax guys. If you're all that hungry, go and eat in the kitchen," Naruto said as the others grumbled and left as Jean and Rachel gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Don't strain yourself too much today, Naruto. You might have fast healing, but taking 6 blades to the midsection's got to be strenuous," said Jean with a caring tone. "Of course, a couple of nurse outfits might be able to help speed up the healing process. Especially in a more private setting," Rachel said with half-lidded eyes and a seductive tone. "Wait, seriously?" Naruto asked excitedly. "Rachel. I thought we agreed to keep it a secret at least until we got him in that private setting you mentioned," Jean said, enjoying the dumbfounded look on Naruto as they walked off. Kurt teleported away as Naruto opened the door and saw Kitty sitting at the table, typing on her laptop. Smiling, he snuck up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. "Hey beautiful," Naruto said, grunting a little. She smiled up at him before giving him a kiss. "Hey yourself, my hero. Glad to see you can stand without, like, wincing. Here's hoping you won't be saving all of your damsels in that fashion," Kitty said. "Hey, what kind of hero or boyfriend would I be if I didn't sweep my ladies off their feet?" She giggled in surprise as Naruto picked her up bridal style before walking away and phased through the door. Xavier's school for the gifted, Knight. Naruto, wearing only blue jeans and bandages around his chest and stomach, watched as Kurt kept everyone out of the dining room. "Okay, relax guys. If you're all that hungry, go and eat in the kitchen," Naruto said as the others grumbled and left as Jean and Rachel gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Don't strain yourself too much today, Naruto. You might have fast healing, but taking 6 blades to the midsection got to be strenuous," said Jean, with a caring tone. Of course, a couple of nurse outfits might be able to help speed up the healing process. Especially in a more private setting. Rachel said with half-lidded eyes and a seductive tone. Wait, seriously? Naruto asked excitedly. Rachel. I thought we agreed to keep it a secret at least until we got him in that private setting you mentioned. Jean said, enjoying the dumbfounded look on Naruto as they walked off. Kurt teleported away as Naruto opened the door and saw Kitty sitting at the table, typing on her laptop. Smiling, he snuck up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. Hey beautiful. Naruto said, grunting a little. She smiled up before giving him a kiss. Hey yourself, my hero. Glad to see you can stand without, wincing. Here's hoping you won't be saving all of your damsels in that fashion. Kitty said. Hey, what kind of hero or boyfriend would I be if I didn't sweep my ladies off their feet? She giggled in surprise as Naruto picked her up bridal style before walking away and phased through the door. Now. Xavier's school for the gifted afternoon. Naruto, with Rachel and Jean, drove up to the mansion in his car after a long day at school. Jean glanced over as Rachel leaned into Naruto and huffed. Oh, don't be jealous, Jean. Unlike you, Kitty and I have to pretend we're single in public. Do you know how many times we get asked out? Although I haven't been asked as much since Duncan turned his focus to Emma. Rachel said as the gate opened and they drove through. They parked in front of the mansion before Naruto quickly got out and slid over the hood. Jean pulled up his black backpack and looked out her window. Naruto, wait. You forgot your HMPH. Jean was silenced as Naruto appeared in front of her and kissed her as he took his backpack. Thanks, honey. Jean sighed, with a content look on her face. As he ran back inside, he never noticed Rachel and Jean walk into the woods. Rachel walked in the woods beside the mansion before hearing the crunch of a stick. Evan, I swear if you're filming me again, she stopped as she deflected fire that came at her. Looking forward, she saw a teen boy walk out of the woods. He has wild red blonde hair and blue eyes. He is wearing his red and orange outfit with blue boots and gloves. He is wearing a flamethrower around his back and a mask around his head with an orange visor. Who the hell are you? She asked as the teen grinned. Just someone who'll be testing to see if you're ready. Rachel narrowed her eyes before fire came out of the teen's hands and came at her. The fire swirled around her as she floated up and threw the fire back. The teen shot more fire at her and she deflected them before picking up rocks and threw them at him. Rachel's hair started floating up before picking the boy up and threw him into the woods where he went through a tree and fell unconscious. Naruto. Rachel looked to her left as she heard Jean yell and saw a metal sphere fly away. Jean. She yelled before hearing a thud. Looking behind her, she saw another sphere in the ground before walking over. Suddenly, the top part of the sphere opened, metal tendrils came out, wrapped around her, and pulled her in. Aw crap. She frowned before being sprayed with green mist and fell unconscious. Emma, mansion's pool. Emma walked around the pool when she saw a squirrel walk around the edge before hearing someone clear their throat. Looking back, she saw a man. He is tall and very masculine with a V-shaped torso, broad shoulders, long legs, and a square jaw. He has brown hair and a bowl cut and red eyes with black sclera. He's wearing a navy uniform with a maroon strip on the front and back running down both legs that is left a little unzipped at the front with rolled up sleeves. He's wearing a belt, fingerless gloves with silver wristlets, silver boots and a brown trench coat. He also has a cowl on his head that seems to extend to underneath his uniform. Hello Cheery. He said in a Cajun accent. Remy's the name. He said smiling as Emma narrowed her eyes before she spoke. Well, I'm sorry Remy. But we're closed for the day. Her skin changed into its organic diamond form as Remy pulled a deck of cards out of his coat. Oh please, what the hell is that supposed to do? She asked as Remy picked up a card making it glow pink. He threw it at her feet. Looking down, she raised an eyebrow. Boom. Emma was thrown back as the card exploded before landing in a crouch. Seems his power is an explosive one, good lord, that sounded like something Naruto would say. She thought seeing Remy picking another card. I see. So, he needs to touch the object for it to work. She thought before dodging another card. I don't think he can get past my diamond skin, but I still shouldn't let him touch me, just in case. She ran to Remy and punched his chest sending him flying over the pool. Emma lifted her hands and the chairs floated up, then flew after Remy. He grabbed them and threw them behind him before they exploded. He reached behind him, pulled out a staff, and ran towards her. Only for Emma to pick him up with her powers and threw him high in the air. She brought him down into the pool with a hard splash and saw him float up, unconscious. She sighed before picking him up out of the water and dropped him on the ground. She was about to walk back to the mansion before seeing a metal sphere drop in front of her. What the fu, Emma was cut off when metallic tendrils ensnared her, pulled her into the sphere, and shot upwards. Inside, with Naruto. Naruto pushed Kitty against the wall and made out with her before stopping as a shadow came over them. Looking back, he didn't see anything before continuing kissing Kitty. Get a room you two. Naruto looked to see Rogue standing in the hall, her hair out of its ponytail before smirking. There's room for one more, you know. Rogue blushed before quickly walking away. Hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave. Rogue stopped for a moment before going in the bathroom to her right. Why don't you, ask her out already? I know you like each other. Naruto looked down to Kitty as she spoke. Because I want her to come to me on her own. Rachel came to me, as did Wanda, and you. I mean, I couldn't just walk up to a woman I like and say, hey, I'm already with someone, but I have to practice polygamy, care to join? They would slap me so hard. He finished before pulling back. Sorry to cut this short Kitty, but I've got to go and get Wanda. Charles was finally able to get her out. Kitty nodded before walking away, only to jump as Naruto grabbed her ass. Eep. Naruto. She yelped at a smirking Naruto. Sorry, couldn't help it. He walked into his room and outfitted himself in a pair of dark blue jeans, a red shirt under a black long-sleeve hoodie, and running shoes. As he walked out, he saw the X-Jet fly off before shrugging and walked to his car. When he left the driveway, he saw everyone but Scott, Jean, Rachel, Aurora, and Emma leave in the X-van in swimsuits before turning down the road. Later, he reached the hospital before hearing his cell phone go off. Hey Kitty, going to the beach? Okay, yeah, I'll let Rachel and Jean know. He said as he walked inside and saw Wanda. Wow. He said, noticing her new attire. She's wearing a red brocade vest that shows off her midriff, black leather pants with a long red ribbon-like belt and thick red shoes. She's accessorizing with multiple bracelets and armlets on her wrists and forearms, a choker necklace, a couple of rings, and cross earrings. She smiled as she picked up a duffel bag and threw it at him. Be a dear and carry my bag. She said as she walked past him. Naruto dumbly nodded as he watched her swing ass for a moment. Well, come on Naruto. I want to get a haircut. She finished as Naruto nodded and followed her. As they got in his car, his cell went off again. Hey Kitty, wait, what? Okay, I'll meet you at the mansion. He put his phone down, hit the gas pedal, and peeled out in the road, cutting off several drivers as he turned around. Whoa. What's the emergency? Almost gave me whiplash there. Wanda asked as Naruto drifted on a turn. Your father took my girls and several other mutants. They've been getting caught by and leaving in giant metal spheres. Unless there's another mutant with the power of magnetism, he trailed off before seeing a blue glow coming from her. Save it for him, Wanda. Naruto said as his eyes flashed red and he gripped the wheel harder. Calm down Kit, you know the bastard wouldn't harm them unless he had no choice. Kurama said, making Naruto snort. Please. I've seen him attack the very same mutants he claims to love because they didn't share the same vision that he does. Naruto thought as he shifted into a higher gear. He pulled into the driveway of the mansion where he saw everyone but Rogue in swimwear walking inside with Toad. Naruto hits the brakes and slid to a stop by the X-van before quickly getting out. Any idea where they are? Naruto asked as Kitty ran to him and hugged him. Someplace called Asteroid M. Naruto looked up as they heard Mystique speak up and jumped down in front of them. Hey, if you're here, then that means you're a loser too. Toad said before being grabbed by Mystique. Never call me that. She yelled before Kurt spoke up. Then why are you really here, mother? He asked Mystique as she pushed Toad away. No one discards me. Not even Magneto. I'm going after him. You can come with, or I'll go ALO. She stopped as she was interrupted by a log-on. You won't be alone, he said, walking in with tears in his clothes. Magneto's got our friends. We're going after him. Mystique nodded as she crossed her arms. Okay, but I know the man, so I'm calling the shots. No. Get your own ride. X-Men, let's move. Logan said, walking down the hall, and the others followed with Mystique, who sighed after a moment. Alright. But I expect to be consulted. They changed into their costumes with Wanda putting on a red trench coat that she had in her duffel bag and went into the hangar. Naruto walked beside her and Shadowcat, heading towards a helicopter with a jet engine on it, and walked into it. The XM Velocity. AN. For better picture type XM Velocity X-Men Evolution. Kitty looked to Wanda. So you're Wanda? She asked as Wanda looks to her and raises an eyebrow. Yeah. She answered. Naruto told me a lot about you, that is after he and I, Kitty trailed nervously. After you and he started sucking faces, I take it. Wanda said with a knowing smirk. Kitty blushed and said, well, not how I'd word it out, but yeah. He said that you're already aware of his unique relationship situation, so does that mean you've hooked up with him already? Wanda looked towards Naruto, who was walking ahead of them. When I first met him, he was the only one who wasn't afraid of me. Since then, he's been the only one, besides the professor, who's visited me, trained me, and overall spent time with me. Suffice to say, I fell for him the moment he taught me my first Tai Kai pose. Kitty looked to her and Naruto in surprise. Wow. I knew Naruto was a sweetheart before, but wow. She sighed with a blush on her cheeks. Wanda smiled and asked, so, I know Jean, Rachel, and yourself are with Naruto. Anyone else I should know about? As they sat in the Velocity seats, Kitty looked to her and said, Rogue, the girl with the white streak in her hair. She totally has the hots for him, especially since Naruto's the only one she can touch without hurting him. Ah, so that's the, how did he put it, Southern Belle, Naruto mentioned. They both shared a chuckle when they felt the Velocity start up. Later, skies of the Antarctic. As they made it to the asteroid, they saw two men walk out. Scott. Wolverine asked, seeing Scott with white hair, without glasses, and wearing a leather jacket over a white shirt, black pants, boots, and gloves. Beside him is another man with long white hair and wearing the same attire. Is that a mullet? Really? Naruto asked before Scott attacked them with the other man who shot a beam of what looked like fire out of his hands. They crashed inside, and everyone but Naruto came out of the wreckage. Kitty looked to see the X-Men that won their fights in tubes before a feeling of dread washed over the area. The plastic helicopter started to melt, revealing Naruto with red chakra surrounding him. He looked up and everyone only saw red slitted eyes staring at them before he disappeared from sight. He appeared behind Blob and punched him, sending him through several walls and broke everyone out of their stupor. Avalanche's eyes rolled back as he shook the room before Naruto appeared in front of him. Hello, Lance. Naruto said with a distorted voice before a red claw grabbed him and slammed him in the ceiling and back down to the floor, cracking his helmet. Wanda Quicksilver yelled out as Wanda smirked. Hello, brother. She spat out as her hands glowed blue. The room shook as devices exploded and fire surrounded Quicksilver, who tried to run. Only to trip over his feet, and Rogue ran over to touch his face, temporarily absorbing his ability. Rogue ran around and helped in the fights before running to Storm, who was getting the others to the X-Jet. Remy dropped down from the shadows as fire covered Naruto, who looked behind him and saw Pyro, who was laughing. Naruto glanced to see Wolverine fighting a more muscular and furrier Sabretooth and Mystique fighting Magneto. Naruto sighed before sending a chakra hand to grab both Remy and Pyro before throwing them into the wall and dented it. Suddenly, a blue light lit up the room and Naruto saw Magneto flying after Mystique as she went inside a metal chamber. Rogue sped to Naruto using Quicksilver's speed and placed her hands on his face. She hissed a little before Naruto took a calming breath and grabbed her hands with his. Green chakra surrounded his hands and her burns healed. Hey, Rogue. Naruto said with a smile as the other girls ran over. Hey, sugar. Rogue said before leaning up and kissed him. Naruto smiled before wrapping his arms around her waist. He pulled back and smiled at her. And here I thought you would never come to me. He said before hearing Emma speak up. Really, Scott? You're the future. Because if that's true, then it's a future I don't want to be a part of. She said, walking away from Scott and Alex. Charles sighed before turning his chair around. I agree that mutants shouldn't be divided, but we didn't draw that line. Magneto did, and it's still there, you've just passed over it. Everyone left, leaving Scott and Alex in the room. Later, after waiting several minutes, Scott and Alex ran to the X-Jet as it hovered over the platform made onto the edge of the asteroid. Jean opened the door as Emma walked to the opening. Scott. Alex. She yelled before the platform broke and the X-Jet plummeted to the icy ground. Shit. Naruto yelled as he was thrown to the back as he was standing in the aisle before hearing an explosion. The X-Jet leveled out as Naruto looked out a window and saw Scott and Alex use their powers to fall slowly to the ground. Boom. The asteroid exploded and fell down as two metal spheres flew out of the smoke. The X-Jet hovered around Scott and Alex as pieces of the asteroid fell down before they shot their powers straight up in the air at the asteroid, destroying it. Wolverine landed the X-Jet, everyone ran out and saw that Scott was back to normal and Alex's hair went blonde. Scott opened his eyes and had to shut them quickly as they glowed red. Naruto walked over and placed his right hand on Scott's forehead. After a moment, Naruto smiled and stood up. I guess when your plane crashed and you hit your head, that damaged some very sensitive nerves in your brain, specifically towards your eyes. Scott, would you kindly open them? Scott slowly opened his eyes and nothing happened. Ah. He quickly closed them as it was too bright for him. Emma walked over and handed him his glasses. You're going to have to periodically take your glasses off and get used to the light. Naruto finished as Scott sighed before looking to Emma. I'm sorry, everyone. He said as Naruto waved him off as Charles rolled over. We owe you to our lives, Alex, your powers will manifest and we'll be there to help you along the way. Together, always unified, because we're the X-Men. Last time. Shit. Naruto yelled as he was thrown to the back as he was standing in the aisle before hearing an explosion. The X-Jet leveled out as Naruto looked out a window and saw Scott and Alex use their powers to fall slowly to the ground. Boom. The asteroid exploded and fell down as two metal spheres flew out of the smoke. The X-jet hovered around Scott and Alex as pieces of the asteroid fell down before they shot their powers straight up in the air at the asteroid, destroying it. Wolverine landed the X-jet, everyone ran out and saw that Scott was back to normal and Alex's hair went blonde. Scott opened his eyes and had to shut them quickly as they glowed red. Naruto walked over and placed his right hand on Scott's forehead. After a moment, Naruto smiled and stood up. I guess when your plane crashed and you hit your head, that damaged some very sensitive nerves in your brain, specifically towards your eyes. Scott, would you kindly open them? Scott slowly opened his eyes and nothing happened. Ah. He quickly closed them as it was too bright for him. Emma walked over and handed him his glasses. You're going to have to periodically take your glasses off and get used to the light. Naruto finished as Scott sighed before looking to Emma. I'm sorry everyone. He said as Naruto waved him off as Charles rolled over. We owe you to our lives, Alex, your powers will manifest and we'll be there to help you along the way. Together, always unified, because we're the X-Men. Now. Xavier's School for the Gifted, morning. Naruto fell on his bed as Rogue, in her pajamas, straddled him. Naruto put his hands on her hips and rubbed her sides before she bent down and kissed him. They paused their makeout session for a moment. I can definitely get used to this, sugar. Rogue said as she leaned in to lock lips once more. Naruto grinned in the kiss before moving his hands down to grope her ass. Rogue moaned before sitting up and crossed her arms to start pulling her shirt off. As soon as Naruto saw the underside of her breasts, the door opened showing Rachel in her pants and black bra. Okay, come on you two, we've got school. Naruto groaned as Rogue puts her shirt back down. Don't worry, Naruto. We'll have plenty of other opportunities. She said while turning around with a smile. Later, a fully dressed Naruto, Rogue, and Rachel walked out as Wanda, now with short hair, walked out of the bathroom by Naruto's room. Well, what do you think? She said twirling around as Naruto walked over. You look beautiful, Wanda, with or without hair. Wanda snorted as she crossed her arms under her bust. You're just saying that. Naruto shook his head before continuing. I am not. I never fell in love with your hair, I fell in love with you. He finished, cupping her cheek in his hand. Wanda sighed happily, closing her eyes and holding onto his hand with both of hers. A month later, Bayville High School. Naruto, wearing blue lens sunglasses, black shirt, faded blue jeans with a hole in the left knee, and black boots, cheered from the stands as he watches Jean play soccer. He sat down beside Rachel and Kitty as the clock counted down from 10 seconds. He lurched forward as he felt a foot push into his back. Looking back, he smiled as he saw Wanda sitting at the last row behind him and planted her feet beside him. She rubbed his side as the buzzer sounded off when Jean made the winning goal. Rachel grinned and Kitty suddenly squeaked as Naruto reached behind them, making him grin. Well then, let's go down and congratulate her. Naruto said as they made their way down, passing Scott, Kurt and Evan. Jean ran over as Naruto walked through the cheerleaders. Hey Jean, you were great out there. You want to ride home? She shook her head as she kissed him on the cheek. No. The team's going out celebrating. He smiled at that before speaking. Really? Well, I'm certainly glad you trust me enough to be surrounded by these athletic ladies. She deadpanned at him before flicking his nose. No, you can't come, so get your mind out of the gutter. His shoulders slumped as Kitty pulled him away. Come on, the others are leaving, and you're, like, my ride. It's been roughly a month since the battle at Asteroid M, and things were going to get more complicated and interesting very soon for the rest of the world. Naruto remembered Magneto talking about how mutants are going to be surfacing and catching the public's eye. As much as Naruto hated to admit it, he was right. More and more mutants were starting to surface every day that it's really getting harder and harder to keep track of all of them. After the incident, things have started to get back to normal, like the Brotherhood going back to what they usually did, but Mystique, Magneto and his two acolytes Pyro and Gambit were still MIA. Alex, Scott's brother, had to return to Hawaii since he still has a life back there, but he promised his brother he will come to the institute once he is done with high school. So for now he will be practicing on controlling his powers until then. Later, Naruto drove his car as Kitty, in the passenger seat, and Rachel and Wanda, who are in the back, argued over music. Like, what do you think? Kitty stopped as Naruto swerved in the next lane, avoiding a speeding car being chased by several cop cars. Well crap. Naruto said as Scott drove past him with Kurt and Evan, just as the speeding car took an exit and crashed off the bridge. Damn, okay, screw hiding, we need to help. Naruto said as he and the girls got out and ran to Scott and the others. The car fell as Naruto looked to Kurt. Get him out of there and behind the bus under the bridge. Kurt poofed away as Scott used his beams to hit the car away from the other cars, just as Kurt poofed back. Everyone grabbed hands and Kitty phased them through a wall to wait for things to cool down. Later, Xavier's School for the Gifted. Naruto caught a frisbee as a girl ran at him. She is a young fair-skinned girl with a small and petite figure. She has short red hair styled up and two small pigtails and green eyes. She's wearing a green 3/4 length sleeved, cut-out shoulder top that has a turtleneck, light grayish white jeans and tennis shoes. "Hey Naruto." She greeted in a Scottish accent. "Pair on." Naruto threw the frisbee behind his back, having Ron run after it, transforming into a young wolf as he walked past a boy doing acrobatics. He is a Brazilian boy with an athletic and lean frame. He has somewhat curly dark brown hair and brown eyes. He's wearing a red shirt with cream-colored accents, tan pants and brown shoes. The boy suddenly was lit on fire as the rest of his body turned black. "Easy Roberto. I just mowed," Naruto said walking past him. Roberto then bumped into a boy about 4'9" with a slim build. He has blue eyes and brown hair, wearing a brown long-sleeved shirt, jeans, and was currently eating an apple. Naruto sighed as the boy suddenly multiplied before walking to see another boy create ice from his hands and make a ramp at the fountain, having a baseball roll of it and into his hands. He has brown, short hair and brown eyes. He has white skin and lean physique. He's wearing a light blue short-sleeved shirt with dark blue sleeves. He's also wearing long, light brown pants and gray trainers. He threw the ball to a blonde-haired boy wearing a black shirt under a jean jacket with ripped sleeves and jeans who jumped for it while his legs vibrated. And sped right into the brick wall, going through it. "Oh come on Sam. I just fixed that wall from the last time you went through it," Naruto yelled as he sighed. "Charles really needs to start paying me for this," he said before seeing a teen girl blow into her hand and formed glowing balls. She's a Caucasian girl with a skinny but slightly curvy figure. She has short wispy blonde hair with bangs and blue eyes. She's wearing makeup, pink lip gloss, and blue nail polish. She's wearing a pink scoop t-shirt, faded blue, bell-bottom jeans with a leather belt, and black boots. She's wearing gold cuff bangle bracelets on her right wrist and a silver upper arm swirl bangle bracelet on her left arm with a leather cord necklace. Also, she is wearing multiple rings on both hands and she has piercings on her upper and lower ears. She threw the balls at another group of teens of 2 girls and 1 boy. The first girl is an African-American teenager with long chocolate brown hair and a tan skin complexion. She's wearing a purple shirt under a white jean jacket, purple pants and white shoes. The next girl has slightly tanned skin and long, straight black hair. She's wearing a white shirt under a yellow jacket, blue jeans with a belt. The boy has blonde hair cut into a crew top with orange bangs pulled up like bolts. He's wearing a jean jacket and a brown shirt with blue jeans. The balls exploded like firecrackers, scaring them. They all glared at the girl who first threw the energy balls. The girl's hands glowed as did the boy before attacking with fire, lightning, and an energy blast forcing her to flee. "And I thought my world was chaotic," Naruto said walking inside as the new mutants played with their powers. "Naruto, can I have a word with you?" Charles spoke in his mind as he stepped inside. "Yeah, sure." Naruto walked to Charles' office where he saw Kurt, Kitty, Scott, Wanda, Rachel, and Evan walk out. "I take it this is about earlier?" Naruto asked, making them nod before everyone but the girls left. Naruto sat in a chair as Charles sighed. "First, I'm not mad that you used you-pow." Charles stopped as Naruto leaned forward. "Good, because I'm not sorry Charles. I'll do it again and again if lives are at stake." Charles laced his fingers together before speaking. "The people aren't ready for us." Naruto shrugged at that. "I don't care, the lives of others outweigh keeping my powers secret from the public." Naruto walked out and saw the blonde-haired girl run inside. "No running inside, Tabitha. Don't want to ruin your good looks." The now identified Tabitha grinned as she ran up the stairs. "Nothing can ruin my looks, hot stuff." "Someone's gotta crush." Naruto looked to see a smirking Emma walking inside. "Can you blame her, Emma? I'm also hey, I didn't see you in school today, where were ya?" Emma shrugged as she walked upstairs. "Well, if you must know, I got a different schedule this semester." Naruto then smirked. "Oh, well, I suppose the White Queen of Bayville has no need to share the schedule with us common folk," he said in a joking tone while bowing with his arms open. Emma just looked to him with a mildly irked look. "Ha, ha, ha. That's funny coming from the Harem master of the Xavier Institute." Naruto looked up from his mock bow and said, "Touché, Frost." Next day, Bayville High School gym. Naruto sat beside Jean as he looked down at the Brotherhood before Rogue walked in and sat down beside a girl with purple-dyed hair. She's wearing a green long-sleeved shirt and brown cargo pants with several rings on her fingers. Naruto smiled as he saw Rogue talk with the girl before feeling something. "Feeling something off, kid?" Naruto sighed as he heard Kurama in his mind. "No. Just thought for a moment there, I felt something familiar about the new girl is all." He then cut off his connection before seeing Lan sit behind Kitty. His curiosity getting the better of him, he added chakra to his ears to hear their conversation. "Oh, the walking Richter scale. Shouldn't you be erupting somewhere?" she said, making him smirk. That's my girl. Naruto muttered before seeing the new principal, a man with dark gray hair wearing glasses and has green eyes. He's wearing a suit of a blue jacket, red blue striped tie, and brown pants. Suddenly, the room shook and Naruto picked out a coin and flicked it at Lance, getting him to stop as Kitty glared at Lance. Lance started again, having the scoreboard fall down. Principal Kelly screamed before Jean and Rachel had the board fall away from him as he jumped. Since when is Bayville on a fault line? Principal Kelly asked, breaking the tension before continuing. Anyway, I want to welcome you to a new school year. I know filling the void left by your previous principal, Miss Darkholme, won't be easy. But it's a challenge I'm up for. And that brings me to the theme I hope we'll catch on: meeting new challenges. And the second is supporting our girls' soccer team for the championship tonight. Later, Naruto waited by his car with Rachel and Wanda inside before seeing two girls walk by before looking to them. Hey Sandy, have you seen Jean? No, I last saw her with the soccer team. Sandy replied, making Naruto sigh. And once again she didn't invite me. He said before seeing Lance at his jeep, bothering Kitty. Walking over, he picked him up by the collar as he tried to grab Kitty. Naruto walked to the asphalt and looked to him. There. We're off the school grounds. Now. Naruto's eyes turned red and became slitted. Leave her alone or you'll be eating through a straw for the rest of your life. Lance nodded in shocked fear before Naruto threw him against his jeep and left with Kitty. Not noticing Lance glaring at his back. Night, Bayville High, soccer field. Naruto, his girls minus Jean, and the others sat at the front row with Rogue standing by the railing in front of Naruto. I'm loving the view, Rogue. Rogue smiled, leaning forward as Evan brought Charles beside them. Naruto looked as Principal Kelly introduced the home team and a statue of their eagle mascot before walking off of the field. Just as the game started, they heard Lance's voice over the speakers. Excuse me folks. Naruto looked above the announcer's booth and saw the Brotherhood in their costumes as Lance explained what mutants are and gave out the names of who. Well, shit, cat's out of the bag now. Naruto said, picking up his backpack, as did the others to change in their costumes as Avalanche continued splitting the field in half. When they came back, Naruto saw Blob picking up the eagle statue before Cyclops shot it out of his hands onto the gym roof. Okay, Phoenix, stop Quicksilver. Shadowcat, Spike, take out the cameras, Scarlet Witch, Naruto said, looking at Wanda with an X belt that's hanging lopsided off her hip. Mess with their powers as we get the people out of here. Naruto pulled his staff out and ran to help people evacuate before looking to see Rogue touch Blob as he lifted the bleachers at the gym. When he dropped it, Naruto ran as he saw Shadowcat help her out. Naruto looked up and saw the eagle fall just as Rogue ran to help, leaving Shadowcat as she helped the last person out of the rubble. Kitty. Naruto flashed to her and pushed her out of the way, having the statue fall on him. Naruto. She screamed, seeing him pinned under the statue unconscious with a large bruise on his forehead. She ran over and used her powers to phase him out as storm flew overhead and made it rain, putting the fires out. As Naruto came to, he saw Charles using his powers to make everyone forget about Avalanche, exposing them before he collapsed. Later, Med Bay, Xavier's school for the gifted. Naruto leaned against the wall with a bag of ice over his bruise as Charles came to with Scott, Logan, and Aurora by his bed. How much got out? He asked as Logan spoke. None. Seems there was magnetic interference just before Lance spoke up. Charles looked down for a moment. Eric. Naruto nodded before speaking. Yeah, I guess he doesn't want anything to get out either, at least not yet. I hope Lance and the others realize the world isn't ready yet. My main concern is Principal Kelly. I was in his mind when I black out and I'm not sure I finished the job. Night. At night, Naruto was heading back to his room when he suddenly got pulled through the wall. A pair of lips then immediately greeted him onto his lips. When the need for air came up, Naruto released his lips to find Kitty with a grateful smile on her face. Whoa, Kitty, what's gotten you so frisky? He asked. What can I say? When a guy saves me not once, but twice in, like, one night, I can't help but give him some kind of reward. She said while having her arms hang loosely on top of his shoulders. Naruto looked at her with a gentle smile and wrapped his arms around her hips. Just knowing you're safe is reward enough for me. He said, rubbing his nose with hers. Well then, how about a thank you? She asked. Seriously Kitty, you don't need to MMPH. Naruto was cut off as Kitty jumped on him, wrapping her arms and legs around his torso and wrapping her lips around his, while also having her tongue join in. Shocked and running on instinct at this point, Naruto held onto her by groping her ass, causing Kitty to squeak. After a couple of minutes passed, the couple separated. Wow, that's one hell of a thank you, Kitty. Naruto said while walking with Kitty to her room. Well, like I said, I wanted to thank you for saving me twice today. By the way Naruto, what did you, say to Lance to make him look so scared? She asked. Naruto then paused as they arrived at a room, seeing Rogue already in bed. "I'll tell you about it some other time," he said, with Kitty giving him an inquiring look, tilting her head slightly. "Oh Kitty? Good night then, Naruto," she said, kissing him on the cheek. "Good night Kitty," he said as she closed the door. Naruto enters his room, closes the door and sighs. "You know, you're going to have to tell them eventually, right?" Naruto looked to see Kurama sitting at the edge of his bed. "I know, but it's not going to be as cut and dry as it was with Jean and Rachel, since we were all in the same situation. As far as Wanda, Kitty, and Rogue know, you're my pet fox that I grew up with when I came here. I mean, it's not like I can bring up the fact that you're a demon that's housed within me. And who knows how they'll react if I ever have to go fox in battle." Naruto stops when he sees Kurama giving him a look that asks, "Really? You know what I mean?" "Look, I will tell them, hopefully soon, but right now, it's been a long night. I just want to get some sleep," he said as he went into the bathroom, brushed his teeth, changed into his pajamas, and lies in his bed. "Fair enough. Until that time comes, have a good night kid," Kurama says while curling up at the edge of the bed. "Good night Kurama," Naruto said, turning off the light. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.